Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Hopefully, we're all having a wonderful start to the week, and I hope your Monday went well as we're kind of beginning to continue trucking along through this week. And we've got a pretty active next 48 hours here, especially in the south, where I do expect some pretty widespread severe weather during this time period, as well as even up into the Great Lakes and Northeast, where the weather may not be quite as severe, but nonetheless, still a lot of rain impacting travel out there, and also just very cloudy conditions, and probably even a bit windy too, depending on where you're at. So that'll really be the main focus on today's video, and we'll try to cover that as well as we can. And we'll even look a little bit into the long range, and I'll tell you how long I think this pattern is going to last and for who. I guess with all that said, though, we can go ahead and jump right into it. So starting by looking at satellite imagery here, a couple really big things to note. Obviously, the big one is this big time swirl going on up here in the Great Lakes, and this is working off kind of over the Detroit area right now, and this will continue to slowly slide eastbound through the next 48 hours or so. But there's obviously this kind of big piece of energy around it right now, where we have that cloud cover stretching from Maine into southern Canada and into the Great Lakes region, and this is helping to provide some rainfall in here, actually getting a lot of that moisture from the Great Lakes themselves and as well as the Atlantic Ocean. So again, plenty of rain falling right now into sections of Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Illinois, Wisconsin. The other part of this picture, though, is kind of down here into the southern tier of the country, and this is also actually being influenced by this low pressure here. So I want you to notice something right now. You may be wondering, where are we getting all this clouds from? Where are we getting the precipitation from for this thing? Well, if you look far enough back out into the Pacific, you'll actually see a stream of clouds here feeding into this, and this is actually all feeding into this massive low pressure. So this is a very zonal flow, and this is really kind of similar even to what we had back in the winter months, whenever we were talking about that Pineapple Express and just that flow of moisture from one coast to the other. This is, again, kind of a form of that in a way, where we're getting this stream of moisture all the way from the Pacific flooding into the United States and allowing for this storm to continue to spin away with plenty of moisture in it, and allowing for those severe storm chances into the southern part of the country as well. So just kind of interesting to look at there. Now, taking a look at radar, again, plenty of rain up into the Great Lakes today, as we're getting plenty of moisture from the Atlantic Ocean as well as the Great Lakes themselves. So that will continue over the next couple of days as well, and also rain up here into Maine. Again, this is coming from the Atlantic, while a lot of this moisture is actually coming right off of the Great Lakes here into sections of the Midwest. Now, moving off to the south here, this is where things are a bit more dangerous in terms of, the severity of some of these storms. And again, looking through here, we have the chance of severe storms anywhere kind of in this circled area today, but especially right now where we have these kind of pink boxes, those signify severe thunderstorm watches, meaning anywhere in that area has a chance of a thunderstorm producing large hail and damaging winds. Also can't rule out an isolated tornado or two here today in these regions as well. Now, taking a look at kind of the storm map for today and tomorrow, as well as Thursday. So today, again, a big expansive area here into the southern tier of the country, having that chance of some strong to severe storms, but especially there into the yellow area and the orange area. Again, all hazards on the table, but especially large hail and damaging winds today, although, again, can't rule out an isolated tornado or two. Now, as we go into tomorrow's really going to be the peak of this thing, and tomorrow's actually looking like quite the tornado potential, which for June is pretty crazy to see, especially in this part of the country. Once we get into June, that severe weather threat is usually kind of up here where we have any cold air left over, but there's going to be plenty of spin in the atmosphere tomorrow and plenty of clashing dynamics allowing for the chance of some tornadic thunderstorms tomorrow. So to name some of these cities: Atlanta, Savannah, Charleston, Macon, Georgia, Birmingham, Jackson, Mississippi, even the Florida Panhandle. All of you have the chance at some of those stronger storms tomorrow, but specifically here in kind of this orange areas where I think we have the highest ingredients for those storms to potentially produce tornadoes. But even if we don't see that tomorrow, definitely strong winds and large damaging hail in the forecast. So again, make sure you have some way to get warnings in this part of the country tomorrow, as I think we'll see a very similar day potentially to this past Sunday, where we had multiple tornado warnings and even multiple confirmed tornadoes. So although this is further south than last Sunday was, still need to watch out nonetheless. And then as we get into our Thursday, a lower threat, but definitely a threat nonetheless. So, kind of in this marginal risk here from southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, southern Georgia, and northern Florida, especially into the panhandle there. Again, all hazards on the table here, but especially damaging winds probably being the main threat come Thursday afternoon. All right, so taking a look at future radar here. Let me back this up. Sorry, I have it all the way scrolled ahead here. So this is about 4 o'clock tonight we're showing you here. And again, you'll notice all this rain up into the Great Lakes continuing. So again, we're getting this flow into this low pressure. And of course, we're getting rain with it. Can't rule out some of these becoming thunderstorms, especially here on the southeastern side of that low pressure system. But I'm not expecting too much severe weather out of that, although we could get some strong gusty winds for sure. Definitely, though, the main severe weather threat tonight in this area. So we'll watch that as we move this into this evening. You'll see those storms fire off. And once we get into kind of the midnight hour, things calm down to the south, but we have a whole lot of rain still continuing up here into sections of northern West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana. And that, again, will be a pretty good soaking rain overnight. So for you folks up there, if that's your kind of sleeping weather, you'll probably get it tonight, again, with a lot of rain and maybe even a little bit of thunder in there as well. Now, as we get into tomorrow morning, that kind of shield of rain works its way up into sections of the northeast. And again, we'll get a nice soaking rain out of that. But starting as early as tomorrow morning, we could get convection to fire here into the south. And again, the severe threat won't be too high in the morning, but once we start getting past the noon hour, that's when these storms really have the chance to become quite strong to severe. So especially kind of in southern Alabama, southern Georgia, I think is really going to be the peak of this tomorrow evening. And I'm sure during tomorrow's video when we're looking at radar, we're going to be looking at quite some fierce and feisty storms in that part of the country. So definitely watching that tomorrow evening, but we could get strong storms really anywhere in this area, and I wouldn't even rule out a couple stronger storms further to the north here in kind of this zone, but really specifically those strong storms kind of in this circled area tomorrow evening, and again could get quite the lightning show again for some folks as these roll on through. Now, the good news is once we get past midnight or so, that severe weather threat dies down before going into our Thursday. We have, honestly, a nicer day Thursday compared to some of the past couple of days, especially up into the Great Lakes and Northeast. Still likely cloudy with a couple scattered showers, but much nicer weather Thursday up into the Great Lakes and Northeast than we've seen today, as well as what we will see tomorrow. Again, though, Thursday could see some stronger storms down here near the Gulf Coast. Definitely watching that. But really, the main severe weather threat will be tomorrow before all of this kind of clears out a little bit going into Thursday. And especially, I think Friday will be a pretty nice day. So zoom this out and looking at the overall pattern that we are dealing with, and I'll scroll this down so you can see kind of the legend here at the bottom. What I want you to notice as we go through the next, couple of days and really through the next week or so is how this blue is connected. So obviously we have this big low pressure system here, but this is all connected. And again, this is allowing for that flow from the Pacific to continue to feed this low pressure and allow, that moisture return to continue. So as we move this ahead, again, that low pressure will kind of begin to scoot on through, but that connection of blue stays going into this weekend. And that is going to allow likely more low pressure to follow along that blue and form up again going into later this weekend, into our Father's Day, and into early next week. As you'll notice, this kind of section of blue working on through, that could signify another storm system into this weekend, into early next week, and we could again have impacts from that. Now, what you want to see, if you want kind of more of a summertime pattern here in the east, is you want this kind of red here to really kind of take over. Now, some good news I see in the long range is at least it looks to kind of connect here and maybe stop some of that Pacific flow, but nonetheless, we still keep these blue colors in the southeast for the extended period, and again, that could just continue the kind of cooler pattern that we've seen for a while now, and I think by the time we get into July, I know that's kind of far away, I think we'll at least see some kind of flip in the pattern. And, I'd be really surprised if we get through all of June and July without a real summertime heat wave. So, we'll definitely watch out for that in the long range. But bringing this a little bit more closer to now, we'll move this ahead past the next couple of days into and past Thursday and into our Friday. And again, as we get into Friday afternoon, can't rule out some scattered afternoon storms here in the east, but overall, less of a solid severe weather threat, so that is some good news. Going into Saturday, same thing, even nicer, I think, on Saturday than Friday. Some scattered showers, especially up into the northeast, but other than that, nicer than maybe we are experiencing right now. But once we get into our Sunday and into early next week, again, you'll notice another area of storms and low pressure tries to work its way into the east, and this once again could disrupt some of those plans, potentially as early as Father's Day, but really going into next Monday and Tuesday, bringing back those showers and storms, and this could even last into the middle and latter part of next week as well. So definitely watching out for that. Now, because of all this, the temperatures have been, relatively below average, and as I move this ahead, you'll notice that overall pattern is going to continue here in the east of some, cooler than average temperatures. And all of that is, again, because of just this flow from the Pacific, allowing those clouds and precipitation to keep things below average. Now, there are some of us who are going to be above average down here in southern Texas, up into, kind of the northern Great Plains, where this flow is maybe not as strong on, opposite sides of it. We're definitely going to see, warmer weather. But right here, kind of through the heart of the country, where this flow is going to be able to continue, we're going to see warmer weather. But again, on opposite sides of that, we could see above average temperatures. And again, that below average weather is going to continue likely for the long haul while this pattern continues. So I did want to quickly show some, heat index and wind chill things, as I had a request for that in the comments. And, I always like getting requests, and I try to kind of work those things in the video. So I'll show this a little bit going ahead. And again, I have a viewer in southern Texas who is not lying when he says it has been hot. Looking at these, heat index stuff down here in southern Texas, look at that, getting well past 105, 110 degrees. So while some of us in the east have, seen very nice weather, it is not quite, the same for everybody. Some of us are seeing extreme summertime heat, and, we'll definitely watch out for that. Another thing to know here is look at how low the heat index is here into the Great Lakes in the Northeast, as we're well below what we should be this time of year. And again, as we move this ahead into time, you'll notice, down here into kind of sections of Texas and other places that aren't being quite as affected by this flow here, again, it is going to be very hot. So definitely watching out for you folks in that part of the country as we go through the medium and long term. And again, that will likely continue for a little bit. And another thing to note here is although it has been nice in the east, there will be times where it becomes a bit more uncomfortable. So this is this Friday. Again, you'll notice I said Friday will be one of the nicer days, and with that, we'll likely see warmer temperatures as well as higher heat index. So again, there will be kind of breaks in between this cooler pattern. So don't get too stuck on the nicer weather that we've been into. So also, if you're into summertime weather, kind of take advantage of these days while you can. But, of course, as we go into times when some of that rain works its way back into the forecast, with that, the heat index will drop, especially where we're seeing that rain. But again, for a lot of folks, still very warm out there. It is June after all. So again, hopefully this video was kind of, helpful to you in some way. And of course, if you have any questions that maybe I haven't answered, feel free to ask me in the comments. But with all that said, I hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I'll see you all tomorrow.